Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am AttiDude back in another video. In this video, we're going to be learning different types of vectors. If you haven't liked, share, subscribe my channel yet, do it now. I'll provide more content like this. So without any further ado, let's get started with vectors. First, what is vector 1? Vector 1 is a variable used in Unity's shader graph for defining a float. Vector 1 is generally used for the same purpose as above, as in scripts you can't use it. What is vector 2? Vector 2 is a set of two floats containing values for each x and y axes. Vector 2 is the standard variable type that we use for defining 2D transforms, position, and scale. What is vector 2 int? Vector 2 int is a set of two integers containing values for each x and y axis. Vector 2 int is rarely used for defining 2D transforms, position, and scale. What is vector 3? Vector 3 is a set of three floats containing values for each x, y, and z axis. Vector 3 is the standard variable type that we use for defining transforms, position, and scale. Vector 3 can be further used in many cases, or will define the three values of R, G, and B of a color. What is vector 3 int? Vector 3 int is a set of three integers containing values for each x, y, and z axis. Vector 3 int is rarely used for defining transforms, position, and scale. Vector 3 int can further be used in many cases, or will define the three values R, G, and B of a color. What is vector 4? Vector 4 is a set of three floats containing values for each x, y, z, and w axis. Vector 4 in rare cases is used for defining transforms rotation. Vector 4 can further be used in many cases while we define the three values R, G, and B and A of a color. Okay, so here we are in Unity. This is the scene of the universal render pipeline. And to mention, I've installed universal render pipeline because shader graph requires universal render pipeline. So this is the simple scene. We're going to be debugging in here, and let's create a new folder for scripts and name this vectors demo. Okay, we need an object on which we apply the script, and we make this demo manager. Go in inspector, reset its position, safety, scene, and now we add the script. Open that up in Visual Studio 2019. You can use any from 2010, 13, any, but I'm using 2019 community version. And I like to comment between these classes, or I just like to separate them in order to make sure that they do not come together, and it often gets harder to read while making huge games. Very complex games. Okay, so we need some types of vectors. Public vector 2, but just do like this, like in here int. I should be capital. Okay, so here we have defined some variables, type of vectors, and we're going to start function and just call them to debug. Just debug them. And to debug, we often use debug.log, and you can also use print if you want. Here is showing because we haven't input any value like this. Okay, but for this video we're going to be using these. In here we can write v2, v2i, v3, v3i, and v4. And you'll ask how I copied them in the next line. I did this by pressing Ctrl D. Okay, so it is ready for its time. Here we can define something, any value, x to increase that, decrease in here. But as you can see that there are only integers, no float. Just randomly set these values. Okay, and also in here. But we also need to make sure that we add in a statement with this, or else we'll be confused what value we have printed. As we talked in the Java videos, making scripts in Java, making programs in Java, that we use plus sign to add these two messages. For example, v2 is 1, 2, and 3. Then it will first print this thing and then print 1, 2, and 3. Okay, also adding comments everywhere here. Okay, so the error is gone. We have no errors, and when we hit play, opening up the console window, we can see that it has printed vector 2, which was 1, 4, and 4. Just check the inspector here. 1, 4, 4, and 1, 4, 2. This happens because Unity runs the number off to a number like 0.1. It snaps the value to 0.1. Okay, so now if we just increase this to be a bit more, like 6, 7, it will just do work for now. Save this and open up the console. It said like 1.7 because it rounded off this value 7. As 7 is greater than 5, then it will be rounded off to, then 6 will be rounded off to 7. And it just rounded off all of them. So now we saw the we saw the usages of vector 2, vector 2 int, vector 3, vector 3 int, and vector 4. So now we need to see the purpose or how we can use in shaders, how they are used. We also make a new folder for materials. Okay, create a new shader, and I'm going to make a PBR graph and name this test. Open that up, and also in the scene create a sphere, name this, first reset its position and name this like demo object, and in here maximize that, and this is Unity's shader graph. This is the test window which you use for defining values. This window is called Blackboard. This is the main preview window where we can see the preview of what our material will look, or what our object will look. If you want to see for meshes, for different meshes like cube, if you want to see, then you can just press right click, cube, quad, and middle mouse button and just roam around like that. Okay, so in here you can just create like a color or something, a value, and here you can just create a color, name this base map or main texture. Here you can write underscore main text just to make it a little wider, and make sure it is exposed, because if it is not exposed it will not be shown in the inspector. Let's save the asset, demaximize this, and first we need to assign a material. We need to create a material, and I'm going to name this test material. Set the shader to be shader graphs and test. Here you can see a main texture. You can set that to be white or anyone like this. For now, let's just set that to be red. And if you are using for test purpose, make sure you do enable GPU instancing. It is a very useful feature that Unity provides, and also make sure it is HDR. I like HDR colors. Drag this in here, and you can make a multiply node. Multiply, and in here you can just create a vector 1. You can just press space or right click and create node, and just like this create a vector 1 and drag this in. For now you can set that to be 1, but instead of this, what you can do is either define the alpha channel of the color of the main texture using this. So in here you can just write like sample texture 2D, and it will not go into texture 2D because it won't do anything. It's none of what for now. Sample texture 2D LOD. It's still none of worth. What you can do is go to channel. Combining is not good, but we can just define the colors of the color using this color mask. Just in, but I just want to split the colors, and yeah, in here we can just define this to be the albedo, and the x of this to be this. No, but it is not what I want. What we want is like mask color. No, we needed to define each of this, and for now we'll just use the blender node. Replace color, and we also need a vector 3, but we can just use a vector 1. Okay, need to create a vector 3 node and assign this here, and also to make sure I'll create another vector 1, or I think we can just expose that vector 3 and name not vector 3, but we can use a vector 1, name this alpha, this underscore alpha. Okay, take this here and into a vector 3 node or vector 4 node, but in the Z, in the W1, not in the Z, and take this in here, but will not be able to see anything. I'm just going to set this to be red. In here also red, and not on Z but on X we are going to define, and you can just modify the settings of each of this like this, creating these settings. Okay, so I think it is ready to be used. Right, like this, clean up a bit. Okay, save the asset. It seems perfect to be used. We see in here, but first assign the material. Then okay, in here you see the reds, but no effect. Now what we need to do is to define, we need to create a new color based on the values that we give. We need to create a new color. Okay, create a new vector 3 node. Drag that in the albedo slot, and in the X you can write this. Save the asset and demaximize this. And here we see this bright red. This is because of this value. You can also do like it arranged between two values, like slider, minimum to be 0 and maximum to be 255. And now it shows some error. Clear that and save the asset. And now you can see, okay, and instead of this we can do like press spacebar. I'm just going to expose this. Name this color. And drag this in here in the albedo slot. Save the asset and demaximize that. And we see in here W is the alpha one, and in the scene you can see that this is the, and we don't see any effect here because our texture is now set to opaque, and you can just set that to be transparent and set that to be alpha and demaximize that. And now just that double-sided global illumination, and you can see that how easily that works. Set that to 55 to 55 to 55, and you can see the color changed. In here, this is the hex value. We don't see in the HDR colors, but we do see in the normal colors. Like set that to be default 1, and we'll see a hex value. We need to create a new string. String I think is not available here, but it's okay. You can use a gradient name, set that to be gradient, and delete that albedo sample gradient, and then in the albedo time to be set that to 0, and save the asset, demaximize that. You can just customize accordingly, but save asset again, and we don't actually see any gradient because it's not available in here. Maybe it's not set to be exposed. Yes, gradients cannot be exposed. I can just set that from here, just D1. Set that to be fixed if you want, but I want the blend one, and to take a while. Instead of anything else, we can just make sure we control the time You can do this by vector1 and name this time underscore time. Drag the time in the time slot and save the asset, and we now see that it is indeed doing. But this happens because we can't just define that reference to be underscore time. We can just write time 1, save the asset, and can now see that it just smoothly transits between the values. Maximize that and set the mode to be slider minimum 0, 1, and save asset, demaximize that. Here you can see how smoothly it does. And this is it for today, guys. If you haven't liked, share, subscribe my channel yet, do it now. I'll provide more content like this. So I am AttiDude signing out.